So my co-founder and I have previously revolutionized air conditioning. In fact, we commercialized a product that now has over 60% global market share and has saved over 1 billion tons of CO2 emissions. But now that was just revolutionizing air conditioning. That was taking the worst part and making it much better. This time we are totally throwing away how it's been done for 100 years and restarting. And we're being foolishly patriotic in that we've both repatriated back to Australia to try and make this happen in Australia this time. Because last time, to commercialize our product, the research that we'd done in Australia, we ended up having to move overseas. And in fact, the Canadian government gave us a $26 million incentive if we would move to Canada to commercialize our technology there. One of the big hurdles we have in Australia still is that there's very few grants available to early stage companies. And so the grants tend to have hurdles in them about how many years of operation you must have had or what your annual turnover is, which automatically bars it from entry to a startup. And yet most of the innovation is going to come from startups and entrepreneurs. They're the ones that are going to move this needle far faster than established organizations. I mean, Australia has some great programs for research. So the R&D tax incentive is amazing. Taxes are quite prohibitive though for startups. So as you're ramping up, both personal income tax and also obviously corporate tax. And so in a lot of places, there's a lot of added incentives. So I've been talking to New York State at the moment. You know, they're offering that if we were to move there, there's 0% corporate income tax because we're a climate technology manufacturer. You know, Texas is offering similar things. California is offering similar incentives. And so there's just a different level when they recognize that different companies can have, you know, an outsized contribution to what the country's goals are. I think COVID has presented a very unique moment in time for this. So there's a lot of people who have repatriated to Australia. And we had this awesome brain regain, but it's going to turn back into a brain drain again as people have to pursue opportunities. And if the opportunities aren't here, and they can't get things done here, then they'll go. And so helping entrepreneurs particularly is going to be a way to retain that talent here, which builds the whole ecosystem. Because Australia's ability to manufacture is almost dead. I mean, the grassroots level manufacturing things that you need to do are dying, and there is absolutely no government support for that. There's no government visibility on that. The tool makers and the pattern makers and the foundries and the things that supported automotive, they're just retiring, locking the door and walking away. They're not selling their businesses. There's no new blood coming into it. And unless there's startups that are going to reinvigorate that ecosystem, the ability for Australia to be a manufacturer, to be a manufacturing nation, is going to die with it. The government framed the question in such a way that the risk becomes unpalatable. They can't invest in startups because they've painted it as a loss maker. You know, like it's too risky, and how can they spend government money in that way? And yet they're not really looking at it very holistically. So they're giving money to companies that can prove that they don't need the money. Whereas if you reframe the question and say, we're going to invest long-term in this economy, we're going to retain talent, we're going to build knowledge, we're going to build this ecosystem, because every startup that's trying to build a product goes and gets parts made, goes and gets stuff machined, goes and gets bits and pieces built and done, which support a wide range of things. So the money that's coming in from the government does end up getting spent in the local economy, even if that company fails. And so the question shouldn't be, will you succeed or not? You know, have you been around long enough to prove that you're a safe bet? The question should be, how are you going to spend this money? Are you going to spend it in Australia? There's safeguards you could put around that. You know, are you going to employ Australians?